Hi, everybody. My name is Peyton Lauderdale. I'm one of the co-founders of Gathering Hope, and I want to welcome you to one of our newest video series called Slaying the Stigma. And what this series is about is talking about pregnancy loss, miscarriage, all those things, and in a way that we can inform others who may not be familiar with the topic, but also to encourage other moms who are walking through their own healing journey. So today I have Leslie Goehring with me, and she's going to share her story about her son Hayes, and we'll talk a little bit about the rest of her family as well. But thank you so much for joining me today, Leslie.
I'm so happy to be here. I love everything Gathering Hope stands for, so I'm so excited for this.
Oh, good. Our mutual connection is Heather Green. Is that right?
Yes.
So I remember meeting you after Gathering Hope and hugging you, and I was like, "There's something special about her, but I don't know what it is yet." So I'm excited to get to know you a little bit better, get to know your story. But I'm going to turn it over to you. So if you would just share a little bit about you, about your family, what you're passionate about, that kind of stuff. And then we'll talk about Hayes after that.
Yeah, I am. So my story is, my personal life is kind of all over the place. I'm a nurse turned stay-at-home mom turned teacher. And that is currently what I'm doing now. And I love it. And so my husband and I have been married for 2 years.
Okay.
And I have a little boy named Parker, who's 5. And then Hayes, and then Taya, who's 8 months old. So in my free time, really, I hang out with my kids and my husband, and I love just being with them. I love being together with them and just being a family, doing fun things. Anytime we can go adventure outside, we love to do that. So yeah,
Awesome.
that's me in a nutshell. I'm pretty easy.
It's so your kids, like, we'll talk about how to find you on Instagram at the very end, but your kids are adorable.
Thank you.
I just love watching your stories because I know I'm going to see like super cute kids in there.
And something crazy or all over the place or something funny. Yeah, I'm guaranteed to have something really silly happen.
Silly, or you guys are super busy too.
Yes, we are. In fact, Taya had a doctor's appointment this morning, so we're all over the place. But yeah, we are. Busy is good for us.
Share about, tell us your story with Hayes.
Yeah, so Hayes is my baby boy. So my husband and I were married for about a month when we got pregnant with Hayes.
Wow.
And we were super excited. That was and we knew we wanted to get pregnant right away. We didn't think it was going to happen that quick. But we knew we wanted to start having more kids pretty quickly. And so about a month after we were married, we found out we were pregnant with Hayes, and we were so excited. And this was going to be my husband's first biological child.
Okay.
And he was just elated, he loves Parker to death, but being a biological dad for him was just something that he, was really special for him. Yeah. So we started preparing to, have another baby and what that looked like for our family. And about at our 20-week ultrasound, our anatomy scan, we went in, and the doctor, had a really hard time kind of finding Hayes's anatomy on the screen, and different things like that. He was very fun and cordial. It was a different doctor than we normally see, so we had a lot to talk about because we didn't know each other very well. Okay. And so we actually had Parker with us at that scan because we thought it would be fun for him to kind of trying to introduce him to being a big brother, seeing the baby on the screen, and kind of start having that conversation with him.
Appointment.
Right. And so we were all there. And so about halfway through, the doctor still was having a hard time. And then he left for a little bit. I started feeling a little nauseous. And so he let me rest, and he said, I'm going to let you rest. I'm going to come back, and I really need to find some more measurements. And so he came back, and at this point, I still, thought everything was fine. Had no, reason to believe that there was something wrong. And then like 5 minutes after he came back, he said, you know what, I'm really having a hard time finding the baby's diaphragm.
Okay.
And so he said, I want to send you into a specialist. And so we walked out and we went upstairs to my midwife, and my husband and I were kind of talking, and I said, you know what this means, right? Because I have a medical background. He is not a medical anything, things just have to, which is totally fine.
Totally different for you than they would be for just an average mom.
Right. And so I was, had it like, okay, you know what this means, right? We're going to go see a specialist, that kind of thing. And so we go upstairs to the midwife's office, and she was actually at the hospital. So I told her nurse, I said, let her know that we were going to wait. We're going to wait. The anatomy scan wasn't good. I just want to talk to her.
Yeah.
And she said, no problem. So my midwife came back over, and she came right in, and she said, what's going on? I don't even know what's going on yet. Okay. And so I kind of filled her in, and she kind of took a deep breath and said, okay, we're going to go call the specialist right now and see when they can get you in.
Okay.
And so we said, okay, we'll just wait. And we wanted to have the mindset, like, let's not worry until we know what to worry about,
right.
And so the specialist actually told my midwife, we can see them right now. And
wow.
So we were like, let's do it right now. It was a Friday. We didn't want to have to wait the weekend and be unsure of what was going on, if anything, right? And so my midwife said, leave Parker here, I'll hang out with him, and you all go over to the appointment. Wow. And so we did that. So
I love midwives.
I know. Oh, my heart. And this group is just, they're amazing, and they really just have a heart for the family, right?
Yeah.
And it's so nice, because at some places you don't get that. And so we left him there, and we trusted them. We love them. And so we left him there, and we drove over to the specialist office around the corner. And we, had another scan, and they do head to toe, another, huge anatomy scan. So it was actually a 2-hour appointment with the whole, from beginning, start to finish that we were there. And the doctor pulled us in after the ultrasound and everything. And, he said that Hayes had what's called a congenital diaphragmatic hernia. And so when his diaphragm was formed in the womb, it didn't close all the way. Okay. And so it left a hole. And what that hole allows, what happens is, as they grow, that hole sometimes grows as well, and allows their abdominal organs to kind of sneak up through that hole into the chest cavity.
Wow.
And the main problem with that is, whenever the organs kind of sneak up there, as the baby's growing, it inhibits lung growth, because the organs are in the way of that lung. And so he kind of laid out, again, we were only 20 weeks along. And so he kind of laid out what was going on, what things kind of looked like, and what we needed to do from there, as far as finding doctors, and actually gave us the option to, not finish the pregnancy altogether. Okay. And so we left there, and as I remember distinctly, as we were walking out, my husband, we were kind of in this haze, this fog of what just happened. We walked into what's everybody thinks is a fun, great appointment, and we got hit, with
and
all this information.
There's no medical background that can stop that.
No. And so we both we were holding hands, and we both kind of swung back to look at each other at the same time. And it was at the exact same moment we said, we're keeping the baby. We're not, we both knew that, but we just, because it was brought up, we both wanted to make sure. I don't know. It was weird. At the same time, we wanted to make sure we each was on the same page, and we both said it at the same time. And it was just agreeance of, we're going forward, whatever that means. Right. And whatever that looks like, we don't know what that looks like right now, but but we love him already.
Yeah.
And
Had you guys, did you know before that? I can't remember what you said. Did you know if he was a boy yet? Did you have names picked out?
We did. We knew he was a boy. We had gotten the genetic test done a few weeks prior, but we didn't have his name yet. Yeah. Okay. So we had that, his name was at the top of our list, but I was still like, let's just wait, you know?
Yeah.
And so I remember that drive home, and I was texting, you know, my doula and my parents and kind of like filling them in. This is what's going on. And it was almost like, surely everything's going to be okay. Right. Surely, like, everything's going to be fine, you know? And so from then on, it was kind of, we have to pick a specialist. We have to pick out the plan for where he's going to go after he's born. And there was an option for us to go to Florida. There's a world-renowned specialist who that's all he does is diaphragmatic hernia in Florida. He has his own clinic, his own wing in the hospital, everything.
Wow.
Or we could deliver at, we were delivering at Baylor Dallas, at Baylor Dallas, and have the baby in the NICU there. Or then we found the option of delivering at a hospital in Fort Worth, and that's connected to a children's hospital. We could just kind of wheel him over the catwalk over to the children's hospital.
Was he at Harris? Is that what
Harris,
you said?
Yeah. So that's what we ended up. That's what we ended up doing. Yeah. And I remember our stories being similar, kind of in that way too. And so that's what we ended up choosing after, you know, about a month or so later. We were seen by the specialist every month at that point, and they kind of do different measurements of the lungs and kind of guesstimate, you know, their chances and what that might look like and what kind of help they might need when they're born. And his chances kind of favored on the side, possibly needing ECMO, which is a lung heart bypass machine. And so, you know, as much as I love my midwife group, I didn't want to make the decision to leave them. And so one appointment I had with them, they said, you need to go. You just need to go. I walked in there, I knew that was what I wanted to do, but I wanted them to love me and our family that like they had been. And they said, you need to go. And they sent me to another midwife group at Harris, who my midwife at the time trained with. And so it was a perfect little, you know, easy transition. And I went over there and fell in love with them too. They were amazing. And, you know, the connections that we got were just this exact same. And so we ended up making that transition to go over to deliver at Harris. And he would be wheeled over the catwalk over to the children's hospital. And so I had a really hard pregnancy because of his defect. He couldn't, you know, babies kind of drink and swallow and pee out their amniotic fluid, and Hayes couldn't do that in the womb. And so I had 3 times the amount of normal amniotic fluid.
Wow.
I was very uncomfortable, very large, and just, it was hard.
I'm sure you got lots of questions like, how many are in there?
Yes, exactly. I did. People were like, oh, twins. I'm like, no, just one baby.
Yeah.
So much. So, you know, as the pregnancy went on, you know, things got harder for me more than anything. And we kind of just kept on with our plan of, you know, we visited with a surgeon at the hospital that he was going to have. We visited with the NICU doctors. We visited with all these doctors that were going to take care of him after he was born. And so actually a couple of days before he was born, I went into the hospital and they had to stop preterm labor and sent me home. And I came home the next day and they actually tried to extract some amniotic fluid from me, and it failed. And so they watched me overnight, and I went home. I was like, I just want to be home, comfortable. And I got home after that late morning, and I took a nap. And I woke up and I was bleeding heavily. And I said, I kind of thought, like, this isn't right. Like, there's something not right. I just need to go to the hospital, because it was a lot. It was, you know, it was a lot of blood. And I just knew, I was like, I just need to go. I need to go to the hospital. Yeah. And so I called my neighbor. I said, can you watch Parker? I have to go to the hospital. My husband was at work. And so I drove to the hospital. And I get there, and the bleeding had kind of stopped a little bit, but it was still kind of coming. And they said, we're just going to watch you overnight. And they said, if the bleeding continues, we'll go ahead and take the baby. The NICU does not want to deliver right now because of his defect. They want him to get as big and as as grown as possible in the womb. And
How many weeks were you at this point?
So I was 34.
Okay.
And 34. And so, they said, we want him to grow more. Let's keep him in. But if you're going to bleed more, we're going to go ahead and induce and take him. And I said, I agreed to that, so the next morning, and I had been having contractions for months, about 3 months of just normal contractions because of how large I was, and puts a lot of pressure, and so, I had been feeling those contractions, and they monitored them. They show up on the monitor, and I'm like, yeah, but I feel them all the time. I can't tell you if they're any different. They're painful. And so I still had some bleeding the next day. And so they said, we're gonna take the baby. And it was actually, so he was born on June 6th, which is D-Day. And so my dad texted me that morning. He said, D-Day, perfect day for delivery. And about an hour later, I texted him. I said, it's delivery day. They were going to induce. And so we got up to labor and delivery a couple hours later. And I was already a 5. I was already in full-blown labor on my own and ready to go. And so he was born a few hours later. And whenever he was born, they took him over to the incubator right away. They had to help him immediately. They intubated him right away, kind of assessed him, got him somewhat stable. They let us, see him. And the whole time, I remember after delivering him, my husband went over to next to him and kind of got as close as he could with all of the people, the help support that were there. And my doula was right by my head. And I kept asking her, how is he? How is he? Because there was no crying. There was no noise. All I could hear were the doctors talking. And my husband beaming, just, all the craziness going on. He had the biggest smile on his face.
Yeah.
And I said, how is he? How is he? And, the look of like unsure from her face was just evident. She couldn't see much. She couldn't hear much. She was like, they're going to help him. They're helping him. Yeah. And she's a very, very kind person. Just, she loves with just every part of her. And so, I knew that they were helping him, and that's all that I could do at that point, was just hope and pray that they could help him as best they could. And so they wheeled him over to me, and they let me touch his little fingers and, see him. And then they took him over to the children's hospital.
And so you got to see him.
I got to see him real quickly. Yeah, real quickly. I got to see him, and he was already intubated when I saw him. Okay. So that was when they took him out, they took him right over, intubated him right away. And then, so he went over to the children's hospital, and my husband went over there with him. And, he was kind of texting me updates here and there as best he could. And I got to go over there a couple hours later and be there. And so we were there. He was born about 8:00, and we were in his NICU room until about midnight. When I got over there, everybody was working on him still, kind of doing all their assessments and stuff. And they gave us a few minutes to be with him in the room by ourselves. And we were just excited he was here. We were like, okay, like, he's here. I'm more comfortable. Like, let's do this. Right. And so then, the doctor came in and was like, we're getting him stable. We're going to do the best we can, just make him comfortable and everything. And then he went from on a regular ventilator to an oscillator. And so it's a little more aggressive ventilation. And they had to do that while we were in the room. They kind of met together, and they said, we can't get him stable. And then a really sweet nurse came over and said, we can't get him stable on the ventilator. We're going to move him to an oscillator. And they did that right then. And then after that, they kind of did a couple more things, and they said, okay, nobody touch him until, X amount of time. And so they kind of couldn't do anything else. They wanted him to get settled and stable. And so after that, we went back to the, main hospital and kind of got a little rest as much as we could, and just excited for him to be here. And he was born on a Thursday. And so Saturday, we were over there every morning. We had gone over there, and Saturday afternoon, he kind of was having a hard time. I don't know if you can hear my dogs in the background. I'm so sorry. They he was kind of having a hard time. Just, he wanted to breathe over the ventilator a little bit, and his blood draws kind of weren't looking the best. And so his sweet little nurse, said, we're going to kind of go up on his ventilator again.
Okay.
So we said, okay. He got a little better after that, and he was kind of sailed through the rest of the day, and he was doing better. And the surgeon came and talked to us. He said, we're probably looking to do his surgery Monday or Tuesday. He said,
Okay.
I want whatever anesthesiologist is here tomorrow, I want him to be the one that does a surgery with me, so he can kind of know him a little bit better.
Right.
And so they were kind of planning it off of that. So Monday or Tuesday was going to be surgery day. We were kind of planning for that. Our goal was to get him off the oscillator and onto a regular ventilator for surgery, so that he wasn't, because they shake like this when they're on an oscillator. And so
that had to be hard for you guys to see.
It was. Yeah. And the sound, I could still hear the sound in my head. And so that was the goal, was just, let's kind of wean him off the oscillator, get him on the ventilator, and then do his surgery. And then at that point, after surgery, it's all just let the lungs heal and grow from there. And so Saturday evening, his blood draws didn't, they were kind of watching his blood draws. And actually, he had improved all afternoon with his different blood gases that they were looking at. And they said, he looks really great. We're probably going to go back down on the ventilator again. And he had one more blood draw late Saturday night. And so we said, okay, after this one, let's just make sure he's good for the night. And we'll go. Right. We had gotten a room at the Ronald McDonald House right down the street. And so then we'll go get some rest. And his blood draw looked great. And the nurse said, go get some rest. And so we did that, and got to our room at 12:14. And I only know the time because I was looking back at stuff and everything. And we got kind of somewhat settled in our room, and actually sat down to pump, right? I was like, I got to pump for this baby. And my husband and I were laughing. I remember just laughing and cracking jokes, like just of joy, hey, we can do this. He's here. It's kind of the thing that we had been anticipating, of just like that battle kind of for months, right? And so then I get a call from the hospital, and the nurse says, Hayes isn't doing well. We need you to come back. And so I was like, okay, that's all she said. And so I kind of threw my pump down, and I told my husband, I was like, let's just go. He was kind of, what's going on? So in the hallway, as we're running, I said, do we walk? Do we run? Do we drive? Because it's not that far, but we got to get there. But then where do we park? It was like all these things we were saying out loud, but then where do we park? How do we get to them? What door do we go in? Because they shut everything down, right?
Right.
And so I was like, let's just run. Well, I'm 3 days, not even 3 days postpartum. I'm swollen, and we run the 3 blocks back to the hospital.
Wow.
My husband obviously could run faster than I could at the time. And I felt like this weight. It was almost like feeling like I couldn't run faster. I was going as fast as I could, but it was also that instinct of, I have to get to my baby. I have to get there as fast as I can.
Pure adrenaline.
Yeah. And so I told him, I said, run up to the door, see if we can get in that door. And as he gets up to the door, he sees somebody walk by, and he shows him his band. He's like, let me in. And so she lets him in. It was just another parent. And so we run up, get up to the floor, and run into the doors, and we're running the whole way. And we get to his room, and they're doing CPR on him and trying to revive him. And they kind of sit us out in the hallway, and in the middle of the night, it's 1:00 in the morning, and they said, they are doing CPR. They're, he needs a lot of help. And so then they called for ECMO, right, which is the lung bypass machine. They try to set that up really quickly. And the doctor came out, and she said, something happened. We have no idea what happened.
That's not something you ever want to hear.
She said, something catastrophic has happened. I don't know what, but we're doing the best we can, right? And so she goes back, and I remember just pleading to God, right? And in that moment, you're pleading, but you also have this, at least I did this, surely you're going to come through, God, right? Like, surely that isn't going to be my story, right? Him here is my story. It's gotta be, right?
You can't even wrap your head around the alternative. Like you
No.
just can't even if someone's looking at you and telling you, you're like, but no.
No, it's not
No.
even something you can even fathom or even think about, right?
Right.
And so sorry.
You're fine.
How's that for life, right? So
it never fails when we're recording.
No, right? So
something majorly important.
Right. So yeah, it's not something you can even just think about. And so I remember pleading to God, but also having this, come on, God, like come through, you're gonna come through, right? Anyway, come on, like let me just get to my baby, let them come back, let them clean them up, let's do this. And the doctor comes back out and tells us she had done a couple things, and she said, and then it was kind of like almost this like I don't even know how to describe it, this just instinct to I just want to hold him. So we waited in the hallway after, the nurse tells us we're working on him, we are doing CPR, and we wait in the hallway for a while, and the doctor came out, right, and the doctor goes back in, and we see the ECMO machines run by with a bunch of doctors, because it's technically a surgical procedure, right?
Okay.
And so, it's big machines and, lots of doctors. And I actually heard them call for the surgeon on call at one point, and they called for him again. And I think I yelled out loud, "Come faster!" Like, we're waiting on you, right? Because every moment in that moment is like eternity, right? It's just a minute, but it feels like forever. And so the doctor, came back out and said, "We're not going to do ECMO. And, I want you to go hold your baby." And I jumped up and I said, "I want to hold my baby." It was like this instinct took over, and I want to hold my baby. I want to hold him. They up to that point, I couldn't hold him. Right. And
right.
I didn't even ask.
You hadn't held him at all, right?
At all. No. Yeah. I hadn't held him at all yet. We could touch him, but they didn't want a lot of stimulation. So we kind of just would hold his hand and stuff like that. We couldn't even wash his hair or body yet. And so I didn't even ask any questions yet. I was just, I want to hold him. You said I could hold him. And then the doctor kind of stops me and asks, do you want them to take the ventilator out? And, looking back, I'm like, that should have been my first clue, right? That there was something even greater than even what I thought was going on. And, but it was still in that moment, it was, take it out. Let me see my baby. Let me hold my baby. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't, nothing else. And so I said that, and I took off to his room, which was just right around the corner. And someone behind me kind of, shouted a little bit over my shoulder and said, "Yeah, take it out." And looking back, I walked in, and it was like it was like I already knew what to expect, because I didn't even go straight to his bedside. I went and sat on the chair around on the other side of his bed. And I sat there and kind of waited. And then the nurse, came around and said, "Here you go. You want to hold him?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I kind of stood up to accept him. And because I was just so excited to hold my baby boy. Right. Yeah. And that's when I asked for the first time, "Is he gone?" I hadn't asked it yet. And the nurse turned around with him and said, "Yes, Mama, he's gone," and handed him to me. And that was the first moment I got to hold him. And I think I already knew. I just think I was just so desperate to hold my boy that nothing else mattered in that moment. And then when she handed him to me, it hit hard. Seeing him, and they had worked on him for 45 minutes. And so he didn't look his best in that first moment. But that was my baby, right? I got to hold him. I got to see him without anything on his
His
face.
whole face.
Yeah. And that's what I was craving in that moment more than anything.
Yeah.
More than a, someone coming and giving me that spiel of, he's gone, in that moment, I wanted nothing more than to hold him. And so we got time to hold him, and we, in the hallway, we had a chaplain had called my parents to come.
Okay.
So my dad showed up, and we were holding him, and then so we had this same nurse. Hayes had the same nurse all 3 nights that he was there. And so
Wow.
it's really special that you don't see often. And
Right.
so she knew him almost better than anybody. And
Mhm.
she came in and she said, because we had a big open room because of the machines he had. And she said, we're gonna let you go down to a room with a door that's more private. They have private rooms, right? And
Yeah.
so that you can have, a door shut and just some time together. And so we got to hold him and walk down the hallway with him into another room. And she said, y'all, just take your time. And the chaplain would come in and the nurse would come in, and it was like every moment that someone walked in the door, I'd hold him closer, because I didn't know what to expect. Like, what is that moment like? Nobody talks about that moment after, it's just, you don't know what to expect. And so I clinched him
And you
a
don't
little
know what to
closer.
do, like just your instincts.
Right. Yeah. And so the nurse walked in at one point and I said, I need you to tell me exactly what to do or exactly what's going to happen from here on out. I want to know. And so she did. She sat me down and she was like, you can take pictures, you can hold him, you can give him a bath, you can do all of these things. And when we packed for 3 months in the hospital, but we didn't pack a single outfit for Hayes because we weren't going to be able to dress him. But I had one outfit in my bag that I remember stucking in there back at the Ronald McDonald House. My dad ran 3 blocks back to find that bag and bring it to the hospital so we could have an outfit to put him in. And that was something special, and I called a friend again out of instinct who happened to be up nursing her 3-month-old at the time. And I said, can you just come take pictures of our boy? They said we could. I don't have any pictures of him without a ventilator on, and I just want some pictures of him. So she came right away, and so we got to give him a bath. And I remember sobbing in that moment and looking at his nurse. And I said, all I wanted to do was wash his hair because he had gel in his hair from a couple ultrasounds he had gotten done. And she said, I know, let's do that, Mama. Let's do that right now.
I'm so glad.
And so we did. We got to bathe him and dress him and have some of those special moments with him. And we actually ended up staying with him for over 3 hours after he passed. And they flew by. And then that walk back to the Ronald McDonald House was gut wrenching, taking that walk back that we had ran, a few hours prior, was just, my husband, we just held each other the whole time. And then we went back and we slept for a couple hours before, we kind of had to face the world and kind of let everybody know what was going on and what had happened. And we had church members already praying for us, just for him, because he was sick, and making that, those calls and those texts and stuff kind of were very unexpected at the time, So yeah, and then so he lived for a little less than 3 days.
Okay.
And but man, the moment he met Jesus, I just picture that, and man, I can't wait to see him again.
I bet not. Unfortunately, I understand so much of your story.
Yeah.
I hate that we share some of those things, but I think that's the reason why I like to do things like that. Like is the wrong word. Why it's important to do things like this, because even though our stories there's different pieces, there are parts that are the same. And like when you're going through that, you're like, surely I must be the only mother to have ever experienced this.
Yeah.
And I don't, there is no book like what to do. The fact that you had the presence of mind to say, I want to know what's next. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's again, I think that instinct of he's still my boy,
Right.
and in that moment, I had another child at home, but in that moment, I got to be his mom, and I got to
Right.
bathe him and put clothes on him.
Yeah.
And we have some beautiful pictures of him, some that are very gut wrenching, which I think you've
Right.
seen some of those, and some even more gut wrenching than those that I've shared, and some that are just very sweet. And looking back on that moment and those moments after being with him, my husband got very angry a couple times in those moments that they shared with him directly after he had passed, and I just remember grabbing him and said, let's just enjoy him, and we can be angry later. We can go through all of
Right.
those emotions later. Right now, we just need to love on him. And it wasn't him, it was just
Right.
it's just his shell at that point. But that that was the most that we were able to do, and we were
Right.
going to, and he kind of snapped out of it in that moment. And we kind of both, this is the moment that we're given with him, and we're going to cherish this, and we're going to do everything we can in this moment, to honor him and us and our family. And I don't regret a single minute of that, and
Right.
I think about, what if I hadn't asked? What if I hadn't asked, what can we do? All of those things, because I feel like that helped me heal,
Yeah.
being able to do some of those things. And, we have like a little clay foot of his, and that, they had done that after we left. And I found out, and I see so many God moments
Yeah.
of little pieces that just God was there. Because my friend being up in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock in the morning, answering her phone, God moment. Finding an outfit, God moment, and after we had left that day, they did a little mold of his foot.
Mhm.
And I found out a few days later that the person who did the mold was a child life specialist, who's actually the child life specialist on the oncology floor that was Parker's child life specialist a few years prior to that. And
Unreal.
she was able to love us in that way, just doing that for us, and we weren't even there, and it's just little pieces like that God was so evident in there,
Yeah.
in those moments. And whenever I remember praying back prior, God, surely not, right? Surely not. That's not going to be my story. But even though his answer was, he's not going to stay here with you, he has shown me even more of himself after that, even more of the God that I know and that I feel and that I love. Even though his answer wasn't yes, he can be yours a little longer. And that took a little while to find some
Sure.
parts of that. But I'm thankful for that, because I don't know, it would have been hard without some of those moments.
I agree. Thank you so much for sharing those with us, and sharing those God moments with us. I think that they can be so hard to find, but like that's kind of what we have to cling to, because that's what we have
Right.
on the side of heaven,
Right.
Leslie, tell me, what has been the most surprising part about your journey?
I think it's part of this stigma of, that we're supposed to feel a certain way, and that we're supposed to act a certain way and be a certain way. somehow it's, oh, we can only cry so hard for so long, and then we're supposed to just be fine and go about our day. And that's not true. Even in the middle of some of my best days, I miss having this little boy, and I cry, and then I'm okay, and I can enjoy, just because I'm crying in that moment doesn't mean I'm not living for that moment. And, it's okay to miss him. It's okay to miss Hayes in those moments too, and still be, a functioning, healing person, at the same time. And so I think, yeah, just that there's no right amount of time or right way to grieve or to mourn or to function for any length of time. And I think, and it's hard for people who haven't been in a position like this to know what it feels like and to feel it. And it's no fault of their own. God, I would love it if nobody felt this pain ever.
Absolutely.
But it's one thing that grief and loss of some kind is one thing that everybody will experience at some point. And it doesn't matter the kind of loss, whether it's a child loss or a miscarriage or anything, it's still a loss, and our hearts and our bodies and our minds and our just miss them, and that's okay. And no length of time is going to change that. 20 years from now, I might be a different person and healed a different way, but it's okay to still miss Hayes, and that's okay.
Yeah. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but someone who is brand new to losing their baby, what would you say to her? Or I don't know what have you said to women?
First, that you did nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
When Hayes passed, I had all these, what if I did this? What if I did that? What if we went to that world-renowned hospital in Florida, right?
Right.
All of these things. If miscarriages and things, and like, what if I did this? What if I did that? Nothing you did was wrong. Nothing you did was wrong. And take time to process that, however that looks like. If that means, which I did this, laying in bed for however many days, that's okay. As long as you can find somebody to say, okay, let's get out of bed, at least do this, right? Let's go take a shower. Let's go for a walk. So find that person too, whether that's your spouse or significant other or a friend or a parent. Find that person who will just grab you up and say, let's go on a walk. Let's take a shower. And I needed that sometimes too, right? Especially those first couple days right after.
Yes.
How are you supposed to do this, right? And my husband said, let's just go take a shower. Let's just go take a shower. He had to physically put me in and out of the shower, but I did that.
Yeah.
And so I think you did nothing wrong, and process it however you need to, and whatever that looks like for you, and find somebody that can be your just person to be there, whatever that looks like too. And be open and honest with them, and that doesn't mean day 1, day 2, you have to say all of, but
I'd like to work out our communication plan.
Right.
And then
time out. Let's talk about things first. But somebody who knows and cares about you enough to say, hey, let's eventually, talk about how you're feeling, or let's go on a walk and just see what happens, and it's different for everybody.
Yes. Yeah. Those basic things though, like remembering to do those basic things and having someone who is kind enough to say, today we're gonna get clean and we're gonna put on some new clothes.
Yeah.
And like, I'm gonna stand right here
I had my neighbor across the street. She's amazing. And she brought over a new dress for me because she had come over every day just to, help with different things. And I was in the same dress. She said, we're going to get you out of your grief dress. Just put this one on. Just put this dress on. And I said, I kind of looked at myself and I had this, I don't really care, but also to have somebody to love me that much to say, just change your clothes.
Yep.
Change your clothes. That's one step in just a forward motion of some kind.
Yes.
And I did. I just changed my dress that day, and that's okay.
You had touched on this a little bit earlier, talking about the stigma of grief and how long you're allowed to do this and allowed to do that. So part of this series that we're doing is, it's benefited me, like just you and me talking, just as a reminder of like, we're not alone, but the other part is, we want to talk about like, what are some things that you think the larger community needs to know about losing a baby?
Yeah. It's, this may sound harsh, but,
Say it.
As much as I love my parents, and my husband's parents and everybody else's parents, losing a baby, losing a child is not a parent, right? It's totally different. You grow up and you raise children, and you hope and you pray and that you might pass before them, and you hope and you pray that you never have to bury a child or lose a child. And I think that people as a whole and communities, losing a child is literally losing a part of you. And that is something that there is no comparison with, even though losing anybody is sad and hurts, losing a child is just a different grief. And I think, changing, if we can understand how much it hurts and how much that there is to process and do, there's so many other things that can change. And my husband got 3 days of bereavement leave when we lost Hayes. And to the first 2 days he took, all we're making arrangements for Hayes' service. And the third day was his funeral. He worked 2 days in between those days. And that's all he got. And he had to go back to work after the funeral. Then a couple days later, like nothing happened. And, at the time I was at home, and I was at home by myself, grieving and mourning and doing all of these things without my husband, who was at work, trying to work and focus and do all these things that he just lost his child. Right. And
I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah. And, I think it's just, I think it's something that just as a community as a whole, we just have to, and I say have to understand, but that's a hard thing to grasp. Losing a child is a hard thing to understand on the other side when you haven't experienced it or walked through it. But if we can just get a piece of understanding into communities and into workplaces, and say, hey, I just lost my child. My wife is at home by herself, grieving our child. I don't know, maybe that can change families and dynamics and just grief in general, where we're not forced to say, okay, get over it and get back to work.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what you're saying, is that, okay, 3 days and then let's get it together, when that's not how it is.
It's not how it is. It's not even remotely close to that.
No.
And I love what you're saying about like let's try to understand, but you can't. I would almost venture to say, like, maybe stop trying to understand, but just honor it.
Yeah.
Like, you
And
can't
it's
understand,
yeah.
and I'm so glad you can't, but can you just please take a step back and just honor this space and time for just a second?
Right. This is what I need.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all there is to it. And
Yeah.
just say, okay, I'll be right there with you doing whatever it is that you need, or I'll give you the space or anything. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Just, this is what I need. And just allow that to happen, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. I would love to see some sort of radical change across the country.
Oh,
Maybe the world. I don't know what it's like other places
I know.
of just like, this is, it's such a deep grief. And honestly, if you want me to function when you come back, I'm going to need just a little more time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine doing that, let
Yeah. There's
alone
so
my
many
husband
women
having
who
to
have
do
to
that.
go. Yeah. Who
Yeah.
have to go back. There are many who choose to go
Right.
back right away because
Right.
that is what they're like, this is normal. This is what I want to do.
Right. And that's okay.
Absolutely.
There is nothing wrong with that at all.
Yes.
You know, we all need to process and do things differently in order to just move in a forward, healing, functioning direction. Not moving on, not moving forward, not complete healing. Because does that ever really happen, right? Should that
Right.
ever really happen? Yes, we need to grow, and that's why I like to say that I'm growing.
Yes.
But that hole, that haze hole, will always be there, no matter how old I get, no matter how many years go by.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as I can take care of myself. And now I'm almost 2 years out, from him passing. But so now, as long as I can take care of myself, take care of my kids when I'm with them, and function, sometimes that's okay. That's good enough, right? And that's all.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So March is Pregnancy After Loss Awareness Month. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about Taya and your pregnancy with her and what life after Hayes has looked like for you.
Yeah. Oh man. So
that's a big question.
It is a big question, but man, and that's something that obviously I'm so grateful to be able to be in that position after loss, to have a baby. But that pregnancy after loss was, on top of losing Hayes himself, was one of the hardest things I've done. It was such a hard thing to do. But I also grew in that as well. So Taya is 8 months old now, and her name, it means gift of God. Okay. And it is something that we picked from the get-go. That was her name. And even whenever I said, "Are you sure?" We've picked this name a year ago. Like, this is her name. And we spell it different, and so people always mess it up, and that's okay. I get to share a little bit about what her name means, and that's great. And so we got pregnant with Taya, I guess 4 months after Hayes had passed away. And
I don't think I knew it was that close.
Yeah, it was that close. Pretty much almost exactly to the day, a year after getting pregnant with Hayes.
Wow. Okay.
So very, very quickly. And we knew that we wanted to try soon after. And we had, a couple months, went by, and we never wanted to replace Hayes. That was never our intention, our heart, our hope, anything. That's something we can never do. We can never do that. But our hearts and our lives still yearned for a baby. Sure. To add to our family, for our family to grow, to give more love to children, right? That's why we choose to have children, is because we have so much love to give, right? And even giving it to our husbands or our spouses isn't enough, right? We have to give it to another person. And so we still had all of this love bottled up that we wanted to give to a baby. And so, and I think first is that it doesn't matter, right? It's nobody else's decision, choice, anything of when or why you want to have a baby after a loss. If you want to have a baby, if you want to start trying a month later, a week later, 2 weeks later, pray for that and hope for that and send it on and let other people pray for that. And that's it. And that it is nobody else's business, frankly, right? Because that is a decision that you and your spouse make and should make and talk about and pray for. And if that's your hope and your desire, then that's all it takes. That's all it matters.
Did you experience that? Like, I feel like I have to justify my decisions here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did you see when I started off with like, that's just a natural thing too, is like, oh, we knew we wanted a baby right away. We knew it's just a natural thing too, but you always get the questions of, oh, were you trying? Oh, do you want to replace him? All of those things. Like, no, my heart is never to replace Hayes because that's not possible.
Right.
My heart and my husband's heart is to grow our family. And that means by trying to have another baby of our own. And of course, grieving while you're doing that is very hard. While you're trying to have a baby and grow your family during grief, that's a hard thing. My husband and I had to be on the exact same page because we got closer pretty quickly after Hayes died. We connected probably more than we ever had. And that I know is not the same for everybody. I have a personality where I let me do me, let me grieve on my own, let me cry by myself, like, let me do my own thing. And that was the first time that I had actually and I'm not a affectionate cuddler person, but I had my hand on him, I think for a week straight, unless he was at work. I was just like, I need you right here. Because I know the other possibility, right? And I just want to have control over you being right here next to me. And so we had to be on the same page. And as long as that was there, that's all that mattered. And so we were on the same page and we knew what we were praying for and hoping for. And, we started trying a couple months later, and, of 2 months with no positive pregnancy test was even more of a grief. And then
I bet
it got to that point where we were like, we're going to just pray. And when it happens, it's going to happen, kind of thing. And obviously that's hard when you're grieving. So when we found out we were pregnant, like I said, almost to the day that we found out we were pregnant with Hayes, which brings back a lot of emotions and
I bet
and things and excitement, but then pain as well. And we went back to our first midwife group who knew us, knew our story, knew Hayes, and they were amazing. My midwife said, and I think too, it's important to find somebody who you trust and who you can build a connection with, because my midwife was able to tell me, if you start feeling anxiety, if you start feeling like I need to just know something, come in and we'll listen to the heartbeat. We'll just come in. And for me, it took a lot of praying, because I could not live the next 9 months in fear, even though parts of me were fearful, right? Going into that anatomy scan, there was fear. And we didn't take Parker this time because we were like, we did that before, right? We have to protect that part of our story as well. And even going back to the specialist, that's when we had our first anatomy scan, was at the specialist that we went to. And going back there was hard. All of those things were hard.
Being in the same walls in a short frame of time, wow.
And we, before we walked in the first time, my husband and I, we took a picture together, a little selfie, and we kind of told each other that whatever happens, we know that we can be together and be stronger together through it, and whatever it leads to, because we don't want to just get through something. We won't want to just go on out, we want to get stronger through it and grow through it and be together. And so we took a little selfie and we said, okay, this is going to be a good day. Her story, we knew it was a girl already. Her story is not his story.
Yes.
But it's all our story, and it's all God's story. And let's just go in and just see. And when we found out, actually, so I have to go backwards. When we found out that she was a girl, that my midwife, we did the blood sample, and my midwife told us that she had a dream about the baby.
Oh, wow.
About the sex of the baby, and delivering the baby and all this stuff. So she knew in her heart what the sex was going to be. Our neighbor had the same dream, knew in her heart what the sex is going to be. And so we did the blood draw, and my midwife was just giddy and excited about it. And so a couple of days went by, and she said, I have the results. She called me right before we were taking our son to see Frozen 2 in theaters. And I said, email it to me. We're going to see a movie. We'll open it back up. And so my husband and I and Parker, our son, sat on the couch, and we put my phone up to record it. And we opened up the email, and it said a girl, and we were so excited. And Parker, 3 days after Hayes died, he asked me, Mommy, where's the baby? I said, what baby? Where's the baby in your belly? I said, Hayes was that baby. And he said, no, Mommy, my baby's sister. And ever since then, he had prayed for a baby. Can we pray for another baby? Can we pray we get to keep this baby? Can we pray for my baby sister? Yeah. And I said, we can pray those things. Of course we can pray those things. And I asked him after Teo was born, I asked him, how did do you remember saying that were you asking where your baby sister was? He said, yeah. I said, why did you ask that? He said, because that's what I prayed for. And man, to have that type of faith is just, that's what I wanted. And that's what I want for him. And that's what I want for her and our family, because that's what I want. I'm going to pray for it. And now that doesn't mean that it'll happen.
Right.
I prayed that Hayes wouldn't die in the hallway of the hospital. But the Lord tells us to bring our desires to him.
He sure
and that's
does.
what we did. And this time it was a yes. And that's not every time. He doesn't promise that he will give us a yes every time. But he promises to be faithful, and he promises to be there and hear us. And we're to bring our desires to him. And our desire was for a baby, and his desire was for a baby girl, and that's what we got. And walking through that, we knew that either having a baby girl or a baby boy was going to be hard, after being pregnant, because a baby boy, we would be bringing a baby into Hayes's things, his crib sheets, his clothes, everything would just stay. A baby girl meant I had to pack all of that up. I had to pack all the boy things up. And that was hard. I actually had two of my friends from church come over and do it for me. I said, I just can't pack up my baby's things, but it's something that I have to do. And they helped take that off my plate. And there's some people who want to do it all, and there's some people who just can't. So I sat in the room and I said, can you just pack it up for me? Because I can't fathom doing that right now. And so they did. They packed it all up, and that for me was good.
What a beautiful gift.
It was so beautiful, and it was so just, my heart needed that, because I just couldn't fathom in that moment having to do that. And so being pregnant and having a baby after a loss is beautiful. It's hard. It takes a lot of, we had to communicate together, my husband and I.
Now we can implement the communication
Now we can
plan.
communicate. Now we communicate. Make sure you're on the same page, and then yes.
Yeah.
And that, and when she was born, I mean, it was beautiful. During her whole labor, my midwife and I, my doula, my husband were just talking about Hayes, talking about his birth, laughing about his birth, because his birth was fun and beautiful too. And she was born and laid on my arms, and all I did was just screeching, ugly cry, my baby, and I did the exact same thing when Hayes died, my baby. But now I get to celebrate this life just like I celebrated his in life and in death. That I get to celebrate her and hold her. And boy, did I not let her go the entire time we were at the hospital.
I bet not.
Held on to her.
No, you may not take her to the nursery. No, you may not wash her.
Never.
No, you may not.
No. And I did all of it. No. And she didn't heal me. She helped me give my love further, because it's not her that I'm all of a sudden healed, and that's what I needed to heal. Hayes will always be a part of me. I will always be his mom. She's just part of our family too, just like he is.
Right.
Right. And that's, beautiful, and I love it. And I'll always miss him. Right. But it didn't take her to heal, and it doesn't take another baby to heal.
Yeah. I've seen you write some really beautiful things about the dichotomy of holding life and grieving at the same time. Could you just like dive into that just a little bit more for moms who, so they've been able to get pregnant. They were able to, successfully deliver their baby. And now they have this sweet little life that they hold. But I hear so many other moms say, like you just said, this didn't heal me, but, it has been good for my heart. But how do you hold this sweet baby, but also, honor and grieve Hayes at the same time?
Yeah. Right after, I'm a doer, so like I have to do things, and my
I wouldn't know what that's like at all.
I know. My thing, like after he died, was we planted a lot of grass at in his cemetery and where he's buried, and helped lay a lot of grass in the area he's buried, and actually put in a water sprinkler system in that area.
Wow.
We got permission to do that, paid for that to be done. And it's beautiful, and it's for all the babies. You're right there. It's a little baby land area in the cemetery, and for him. And I kind of go like his spot, like that's what I could do for him, right? I could dig up dirt, and I could plant grass, and I could take care of that spot for him. And that's what I did. And then being pregnant, I could still go to the cemetery all the time, and where he's buried, there's a park trail, about a couple miles long, and you kind of go up, and it leads into the cemetery, and it's beautiful, and it's a beautiful walk, a bunch of trees around. And so I did that a lot, while I was pregnant and everything. And when you bring this other life home, it's kind of you can't go out as much right away, right? And I kind of found myself not able to get out there as much. And that was my thing. I didn't just go and, necessarily just cry every day there, but I just used that walk on the path to just be healthy and walk. But also, if my heart wanted to, I could go up and see him. And if not, I could just turn right back around. And bringing Taya home, I couldn't get out there as much, right? You have this newborn, you're nursing it all the time, or you're feeding all the time, and you're doing all these things. And I remember telling my husband, I've never felt further away from Hayes than I do now after I brought Taya home. When after Hayes died, I could just hear things and take me back. I could smell things and it would take me back. I could look at pictures and I could just be there. And I remember everything about the moment and about being with him. And now my focus has been on her so much that my mind hasn't gone to him as much. And I felt very far away from him.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked so much like him right after she was born, and the next few days and weeks, and even now. And I had to mourn that. And I had to mourn the fact that I just couldn't spend my time like I had there with him at the cemetery,
Right.
there with the grass, with the trees, with his shell in the earth as much as I could. But that doesn't take him away from me or my life or our family just because Tay is here now. But it helped me because that was a spot that I went to often. I walked that same trail with my husband one day, and we went up to where he's buried, and we just sat there with her,
Yeah.
and that was something that was like, man, like, this is my child here, but that's my child there. And that's a hard thing, when you have life this close and you have life and death this close. It's a hard thing to understand and to grasp. But I remember asking my husband, how do we get through this? How do I go the rest of my life, without
Right.
Hayes? However long I live, like, I have to live that without him. And, we kind of agreed, one day at a time, one step at a time. And then it was a year, and then Taya was born, and now it's almost 2 years. And we did that somehow, but, she didn't get us through that. It was
Okay.
it was God, his grace, his mercy, and just walking one foot in front of the other. But she's a gift from God, just like he was.
Yeah.
Just like her name says. And she's not a replacement, and she's not a instead of.
Right.
Because we wouldn't have her now if he was alive. We just wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Taya for us is a because Hayes died, we're blessed with her and have her. And we wouldn't have her if we had him. And that's a hard thing to concept too. Like, how do you give up one child for another, right?
Yeah.
But I will see him again one day, and he is feeling no pain, and he is, gosh, he knows more about the Lord than I ever will, right? Until I get there with him.
Right.
Yeah. And, I was reading a couple books after, throughout the first couple months of his passing. And I read something that really stuck with me. Like, God is good. God was good when Hayes was born, and God was good when Hayes died. And even now in his death, he's still good. Even now, since Taya is born, he's still good. And so Taya is she's a because of God's tender mercy and grace and love. And we have her. And because of his love and grace, we had Hayes for 3 days.
Yeah.
And because of his love and grace and mercy, we will see him again. And I cannot wait for that day. I have this just picture in my mind of just walking into the streets of gold, right? And Jesus just coming to me and saying, here's your boy, here's your baby. And we will praise the Lord together. And I can't wait for that day. And until then, I'm going to praise the Lord now, and I'm going to remember Hayes, and I'm going to show that love to my children and to my husband and to my friends and family. and anybody who asks, and I'm going to live that out as faithfully as I can until I get to be in heaven with my boy and the Lord together. And man, it's she is just, she's a doll. She's perfect. I mean,
she really is.
She really is. But and I was like, we needed an easy baby, and she's very, very, like, she doesn't ever cry, but she's 8 months old and has already had 2 surgeries. And so I'm like, is she really my easy baby? I don't know, but she's a blessing, and I love her, and I love all my children. And it's not an easy road, pregnancy, after loss in general. And pregnancy after loss, if you find yourself wanting that, desiring that, praying for that, hoping for that, definitely reach out to other moms or mentors or something, just to help with those feelings. And there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of, am I doing something wrong? I just, because all you want is a healthy baby. All you want is your baby, just like the first time or the second time or the third time. That's all you want. That's all you desire. And you'll do anything for that. I just wanted Taya here. I'm like, okay, let's do anything. Just get her here. Right. And so, I had to still find the Lord through those emotions. And that was very important for me, because I probably would have drove myself crazy. And I still did some, just wanting her so badly and not wanting to lose her so badly, that, I would have done anything. So, yeah.
You have a lot of wise words for other moms. It kind of sounds like finding a community is just as important through that pregnancy as it was after Hayes was born too. So finding a community, no matter what, I think is important. Yeah. Just for moms in general, moms of all kinds, really.
Right.
So I appreciate you so much for sharing all of your children with us. Just as we wrap up, can you share a little bit about how people can connect with you afterwards?
Yes. So I am on Instagram. I am at Goehring a Family. So Goehring a Family. It's a little play on words. And then I'm on Facebook too, Leslie Goehring. I like to write, so I write some in both places, and
you write beautifully. I love reading everything that you post.
I'm better with writing than I am my words sometimes, and I can but yes, so I'm in both places, and I share a lot about my grief, my journey now with children. I share my children, and I love doing that, because I wouldn't have found Gathering Hope, right, if I didn't share some part of my story and how they're connecting us. And so I want to be that community, however I can, to anybody who finds me. And I want to be real and honest as much as I can too. So that's why I try to be there, because if a new mom is going through loss and grief, I hope to be able to be that. It's hard, and that's okay. And the sugar coating isn't gonna help anybody. And so but I also like to bring joy and light as well. And so I hope that you find that there as well. So
yes. We are life with babies in heaven is a life with a bunch of
yes, very much so.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Leslie, for sharing your story and your children with us. That really means a lot. And I hope people connect with you afterwards, because you are an absolute joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.